Welcome to Neo Royal House of Pricey Cardboard. Today, on episode 18 of Commander Gameplay, I decided to add a little camera to the intros and outros of the videos. It's nice to meet you all. You can call me Philip or Neo, either is fine. This episode, as all of our content, is brought by our generous Patreons. If you would like to support the channel, there's a link in the description. I would also like to welcome all our new subscribers. This month has been pretty good in terms of growth, but I'm sure we can do even better in the next 28 days. Playing against me and Kelly today, we have Mathieu and Jenny. Mathieu will be playing his now disassembled Prossh deck. This is a pretty typical Prossh list, looking to ramp a lot to cast his commando multiple times, getting value off of the tokens where they enter the battlefield, when they die, or even in combat with something like Beastmaster Ascension. Jenny will be playing Karametra, God of Harvest. This deck's goal is to ramp into big Celestia creatures and gaining additional value with every cast, a mix between an Enchantress list and a true lane deck. The endgame threats are very difficult to deal with because they're either indestructible or they prevent us from doing things like attacking her. Kelly will be playing Chainer, Nightmare Adept. We've seen the deck a couple of times on the channel. It's a pretty solid Ragdoll's Wheel deck that wants to reanimate creatures to kill the table with cards like Liliana's Caress. Finally, I will be playing the Scarab God. This is a zombie tribal list looking to get the most out of my upkeep trigger. I've got some very good Dimir control in the deck and a little bit of meal to steal some powerful creatures to my opponents. My opening hand contains Rhystic Study, Dimir Signet, Cavern of Souls, Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, Choked Estuary, Watery Grave, and an exotic orchard. Very heavy on lands, I have a ramp on 2 which will get me to my commander sooner and one of the best card draw engine in the format. Hopefully, I draw into non-land cards and this will be great. Kelly's opening hand contains Neheb Dreadhorde Champion, Glenthorn Buccaneer, Ravenous Chupacabra, Sulphurous Spring, Command Tower, Blackmoor Salvage, and a Budgica Bug. Nothing crazy over here, she has no ramp and somewhat of a card draw with the Buccaneer. Pretty heavy on 4 CMCs considering Chainer is 4 as well. Hopefully, she draws into some early ramps or low-costed spell. Jenny's opening hand contains True Conviction, Soul Ring, Temple of the False God, Command Tower, Mossword Bridge, a Forest, and a Basic Plains. Considering in the trend of hoping to draw non-lands, Jenny's hand contains a lot of mana and a finisher for creatures that she does not hold. With the number of creatures in the deck, she has good chance to draw at least one before dropping True Conviction. Mathieu's opening hand contains Eternal Witness, Blasphemous Act, Growing Rites of Itlimoc, Budgica Bug, Ancient Tomb, Snow Forest, and a Mountain. I think Mathieu has the most traditional EDH hand in the pod tonight. His Ancient Tomb and Growing Rites will give him mana, hopefully drawing a creature as well. If somebody starts too fast, he can Blasphemous Act. He could even do it twice with the Eternal Witness. I get to start the match, which is great for my Rhystic Study hand. I then drop Choked Estuary. Jenny then drops a Forest, and casts a turn 1 Soul Ring. Mathieu then drops a Snow-Covered Forest, and Kelly then drops Blackmoor Salvage tapped. I then drop Exotic Orchard, and cast my Dimir Signet. Jenny then drops a Plains, and casts Solemn Simulacrum. Entering the battlefield, she fetches a Basic Plains to her field. Mathieu then drops Ancient Tomb, and casts Growing Rites of Itlimoc. Entering the battlefield, he reveals Critterhoof Behemoth from his top 4 as the only creature. Kitty then drops Luxury Suite and pass. I then drop Watery Grave tapped, one of my favorite art in all of Magic, and cast my Rhystic Study. Everyone groans, and I pass. Jenny then drops Mossword Bridge. She hides away a card, and then casts Oracle of Muldaya. Mathieu then drops a Howl of the Bandit Lord tapped and pass. Kelly then drops Sulphurous Spring and casts Rakdos Signet. I then drop an island and cast Soul Ring. I then cast my commander, the Scarab God.
The hour of eternity is upon us.
Jenny then drops a Plains from the top of her deck. She then drops a Command Tower from hand. After that, she casts Wood Elves, letting me draw. Entering the battlefield, she fetches Temple Garden to her battlefield untapped, and casts True Conviction. Pretty good turn 4 if you ask me. She then goes into combat, sending Solemn to Mathieu and the Oracle to Kelly. Mathieu then drops a Mountain, passing. Jenny gets suspicious. Kelly then drops a Command Tower. She casts Neheb, Dreadhorde Champion, before ending her turn. I cast Mikaeus the Unallowed, and then drop a Dimir Aqueduct. Heading into combat, I send the Scarab God to the open Jenny. Never a bad idea to get some commander damage on the player who has lifelink. Jenny land drops a Cross on Verge. She casts Regal Behemoth, letting me draw a card. She becomes the Monarch, and she follow it up with her commander, Karametra, God of Harvest.
I refuse to let the folly of mortals endanger the home I made for them.
Going into combat, she sends the Solemn to me, which I block with Micaeus, and the Oracle to Mathieu. Upon dying, the Solemn draws Jenny a card. On his turn, Mathieu casts Blasphemous Act. Scarab comes back with the Undying from Micaeus. He then land drops Bujikabug, exiling my graveyard. Goodbye, Mike. Kelly then drops Bujikabug as well, exiling Jenny's graveyard. She then casts her commander, Chainer, Nightmare Adept.
Your life is finished, your name lost, and your work forgotten. It is as though you never existed.
For her combat step, the hasty Chainer goes to Jenny. Kelly becomes the Monarch and draws a card at the end step. At my upkeep, reacting to the Scarab God trigger, I eternalize Neheb into a 4/4 black zombie token. My opponents lose 1 life and I scry 1. I then land drop a basic swamp and cast Lord of the Accursed. I go to combat and send Scarab to Kelly. Jenny land drops the Temple of the False God. She casts the Great Henge without any reduction, letting me draw a card. She then casts Rishkar's Expertise, letting me draw again. She casts Selvala, Earth of the Wilds for free of the Expertise, and I draw again. The Great Henge triggers on Selvala. Heading into combat, Karametra head my way and I block with Lord of the Accursed. Mathieu then drops a mountain. He then casts his commander, Prossh, Sky Rider of Tyr. He creates 6 Kobold tokens, even though I believe he should have made 1 more for the Heuristic Study tax. Going into combat, he sends Prossh to me. Mathieu becomes the Monarch and will draw at his end step. Kelly then drops a mountain and casts Ravenous Chupacabra. Entering the battlefield, it destroys Selvala.
Hey, alors
C'est niaiseux.
Oui, je jouais pas la fin, puis rien.
She heads into combat and attacks Jenny with Chainer. At my upkeep, I eternalize Jenny's Selvala.
On l'a mis. Le coup de verre activé, hein.
Ouais. Oh my. No, do not take. No! Everybody
No,
takes
what's
my
that?
things.
Really happy about the fact that my Exotic Orchard can tap for green. My opponents lose 2 life and I scry 2. I then land drop a Cabal Coffers. I go to combat and send Neheb to Mathieu and Scarab to Jenny. Mathieu reacts with Beast Within, destroying Neheb. Jenny takes 6 more commander damage. Considering my hand was full of lands, I should have sent Neheb elsewhere. Jenny then drops a Plains. She casts Primeval Bounty. She then follow it up with Amulet of Vigor. The bounty triggers and put 3 +1/+1 counters on Karametra. She casts Gorkla, Terror of Kal Sisma. Great Henge and the bounty triggers, drawing a card and creating a 3/3 beast. Karametra triggers as well, fetching a forest and gaining her 3 more life. The engine is starting off. She then casts Blightsteel Colossus from under the Hideaway land. She creates a beast, ramps a basic land, draws a card and gains 3 life. She also draws from Selvala since she played the bigger creature than the rest of the table. All of this for 2 green. The color pie is really out of control. She headed into combat and sent Karametra to Mathieu. He blocks with a Kobold. Mathieu casts Sylvan Library. He talks a bit with me and Kelly, and learning that she planned on clearing the table, he casts Zolaport Cutthroat. He goes to combat, sending Prossh to Jenny. Once he is declared unblocked, Mathieu sacrifices Kobolds and the Cutthroat to give his commander +6/+soul. We also lose 6 life to the Cutthroat. Mathieu then land drops a Stomping Ground tapped and pass. At the end step, Kelly casts Entomb, putting Squee Goblin Nabob to her graveyard. At Kelly's upkeep, Squee goes to her hand. Starting with combat, she sends Shainer and Chupacabra to me. I know that Living Death is coming and do not want these creatures to come back. Kelly then casts Demonic Tutor, followed by Living Death, and I draw on both spells. Reacting to the spell, I eternalize Zolaport Cutthroat. We resolve the Living Death and my opponent lose 4 to the zombie ally. At the end step, Scarab comes back to my hand. I then drop Urbog, Tomb of Yawgmoth. Increasing my available mana by a lot, I recast my commander. I then cast Ugin, the ineffable. I -3 Ugin to destroy the Great Henge, and follow it up with Endless Ranks of the Dead. For my combat, I send Lord of the Accursed to Jenny. Jenny then drops Castle Garen Brig. She then recasts Karametra. After that, she casts Sakura, Tribalder. Primeval Bounty trigger twice for 2 beasts, and Karametra fetches 1 land with Chill Jenny for 3. Matthew then drops a mountain. He casts Necrogenesis. He then casts Decimate, targeting Cabal Coffers, Scarab God, My Soul Ring, and True Conviction. I react with Pact of Negation. At the end step, Matthew draws from Monarch. Katie casts Waste Knot, letting me draw. She then casts Reforge the Soul, letting me draw again. She gets 14 black mana, 3 zombies, and 5 additional draws from Waste Knot. She then drops her own Cabal Coffers, and casts Painful Quandary. She follows it up with Twilight Prophet and a Fire Diamond. After that, she casts Grey Merchant of Asphodel with 7 Devotion, letting me draw on the last spell. At Kelly's end step, I cast Entomb, discarding Sakashima to Painful Quandary. I put Grave Titan to my graveyard. At my upkeep, I pay for Pact of Negation. I target my Grave Titan with Scarab God. Matthew reacts by activating Necrogenesis to exile the Titan. I activate the Scarab God once more to put another ability on the stack to bring back my Grave Titan to the battlefield. It resolves first, and entering the battlefield I create 2 zombie tokens. The other 2 abilities fizzles. I then resolves Endless Ranks of the Dead and create 2 more zombies. My opponent loses 6 and I scry 6. I'll then drop a Sunken Ruin and +1 Ugin to create a 2/2 spirit token that will put a card to my hand when leaving play. Heading into combat, Lord of the Accursed attacks Mathieu and I become the Monarch, drawing at my end step. Jenny casts Avacyn, Angel of Hope. She pays the 1 and discards a forest. She creates a beast and fetches a basic land which then gains her 3 life. She casts Blazing Archon, not paying the 1 and discarding Growing Rites of Itlamok. For a combat step, Karametra and Steve go to me and I block with my tokens. Matthew then drops a snow-covered swamp and casts Decree of Pain. I react with Counter Spell, not too kind on the idea of giving Jenny a free win. Kelly reveals Smothering March to her Twilight Prophet, losing us no life. She then land drops a Temple of the False God. She casts Dire Fleet Daredevil. Entering the battlefield, she targets the Demonic Tutor in Matthew's graveyard. She then casts Erebos, God of the Dead, and follow it up with Croxa, Titan of Death's Hunger. Entering the battlefield, we each discard a card. Kelly makes a zombie and draws 2 off of Waste Knot. Croxa then sacrifices itself. She goes into combat and attacks Ugin with Twilight Prophet. At my upkeep, I make a quick turn of all the graveyards. I do not activate the Scarab God, but resolves my Endless Ranks of the Dead first, creating 3 more zombies. My opponents then lose 9 and I scry 9. I cast Training Ground, discarding Gleaming Overseer to the Painful Enchantment. I cast Buried Alive and discard Dead Baron to the Quandary. I put Cryptghast, Rothulk, and Gary to my graveyard. I eternalize Cryptghast and then eternalize Rothulk. Entering the battlefield, I bring 1 zombie per opponent, Gary and Dead Baron. I have 13 Black Devotion. I do not gain any life because of Erebos. I follow it up with the Windfall, discarding a Disallow to Painful Quandary. Windfall resolves and each player discards his hand for 8 new cards. I eternalize the newly discarded Terror of the Peaks from Kelly's graveyard. I then eternalize Mikaeus the Unhallowed. My zombie dragon deals 6 to Jenny. I cast my Lord of the Undead, dealing 5 to Jenny. I cast Cemetery Reaper, and the Terror takes Jenny out of the game. I then activate my Lord of the Accursed to give menace to my zombies until end of turn, which really does not matter. Then, in my combat step, I create 2 zombie tokens by attacking with the Grave Titan. These zombies enters as 7/7 because of my collection of lords, and with the power of my zombie Terror of the Peak, I'm able to deal 14 damage directly to Kelly, winning this match. Looking back at this game, it was a really nice display of each of our decks. Sometimes you just know from the opening hands that the game will be explosive, but this time, Jenny and myself were very heavy on lands while Matthew and Kelly had some pretty average starting point. What you draw is often a lot more important than your hand. Mathieu was a little bit behind, having lands that dealt him 5 points of damage to just cast his regular spells and then not drawing into any significant win cons, which is on itself quite impressive with the amount in the deck. When the Reforged the Soul resolved, he was holding a Demonic Tutor and his Eternal Witness, potentially plotting to fetch twice in the coming turn. That Reforged the Soul was also the point where Kelly took off with the help of Waste Not. Drawing almost a dozen cards with some mana and a chunk of zombie never hurts. Sadly for her, me and Jenny were still quite healthy and were able to withstand the hit. Jenny dropped her True Conviction really quickly and was lucky enough to draw some creatures to use it. She was already having a good tempo swing and the Blightsteel Colossus was the poisonous cherry on top. For myself, I did what Scarab does best, sit back and accumulate some value while selecting the top of my deck. Windfall is the only wheel type card I have in this deck and it is one of my favorite. The ability to both refuel your empty hand and get your opponent's creature in the bin for 3 mana is amazing. I have an Ocean Thief that I removed a long time ago because our playgroup wasn't quite at that power level, but maybe it's time to bring it back again. Who am I kidding? I've got no cards to cut in this deck. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. On the regular time, we post every Friday and Patreons get early access on Thursday. We're currently working on both an Halloween themed episode and some Yuriko gameplay, so subscribe to get notified. See you hopefully next Friday and take care, my friend.
Mr. Prossh, what was the line again? Oh, that's right, I really hate Phyrexia!